This is Samuel Spade.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Let's Talk. My name is John, and today we're here to talk about 1941's The Maltese Falcon and its brand new 4K Blu-ray that just came out. But first, before we dive into that, if you are a fan of 4K Blu-ray reviews, movie reviews, some tech and game reviews along the way, and podcasts, we do that all here on the channel, and nothing helps this channel out more than by you liking this video and subscribing to the channel. So The Maltese Falcon, directed by John Huston, was released in 1941. It stars Humphrey Bogart, Mary Astor, Peter Lorre, and in his first role ever, at the ripe old age of 61, Sydney Greenstreet. And this is the definition of a film noir. It might have been the first to ever do it. It's based on a 1930 novel, and it's also the second try at making The Maltese Falcon. And this time it was directed by John Huston, who is probably one of the most famous directors ever. He's the father of Angelica Huston. And for younger viewers like myself, you might recognize him most from Chinatown. And if you've seen Chinatown, you know all about noir and you know about The Maltese Falcon. So what makes this movie so famous and so popular, and one of the movies that I feel like every cinephile should see? Well, if you're a fan of noir, you know that that's one of the most popular genres in film. And in the 1940s and 1950s especially, it was one of the most popular genres in film because they're not very expensive to make. They're all usually on interior sets. You know, it's really all about the lighting and the atmosphere. And, you know, one thing about a noir is it's usually a private detective story, and it's a story that really just unravels like a mystery. You know, we start in one place and we never end up where we expect to end up. And usually it's got a little bit of a sad tone to it and a sad ending to it. And watching this film, one of my favorite films ever, speaking of John Huston and Chinatown, is Chinatown. That is in my top 10 all time. I think that movie is almost a perfect film. Ignoring what the director did, of course, because if we talk about the director, I get a little bit dark. But that movie, you could see the inspiration of The Maltese Falcon on it, right down to the last end scene where the last line that you hear, I think, "Forget about it, Jake, it's Chinatown," or "The stuff that dreams are made of." I think those are the two most famous lines of all time, and both this and Chinatown end with those big, sweeping lines that are just going to leave you really feeling, after you've seen a movie like this where you feel like all the cards are put at the table at the very end, everything is explained, and it just leaves you with your jaw on the floor. Even though watching this now, it's very cliche because, you know, this is the one that started it, where this is how cliches start, is in a film like this. All the noir cliches that you've seen, you know, the shadowy sets, the betrayals, the plot twists, that all started here with John Huston's The Maltese Falcon. That's why having John Huston in Chinatown again is such an homage to him and what he started. Like, he detailed, when he was making this film, he detailed every single shot for himself in the screenplay. That's why apparently this film was such a big deal for Warner Brothers, because they made it so fast, so cheap. It was under $400,000, I think $375,000, because again, all interiors. Pretty much they shot this in chronological order to make it easier for the actors, because John Huston knew exactly what he wanted to see on the screen, and he executed that to perfection. You know, back in the 1940s, I think we've talked about this before, you know, that's the time of the studio system, so they hire these actors just to be in different places. The executives, like, would pick and choose the actors where they wanted to be. So, you know, Humphrey Bogart, like we talked about this, he was in this in 1941. And then him and actually Sydney Greenstreet would appear the next year in Casablanca. So, you know, you could just see, like, these guys, again, just being placed in different movies, and, you know, to be in both Casablanca and The Maltese Falcon. You couldn't have done any better as an actor, in my opinion, especially in those 2 years working with WB. I mean, you were on top of the world at that time, I assume. But, you know, it just felt like another job to these actors. Like, you know, you just kind of went film to film. It wasn't like nowadays where you film a movie, you know, the studio only releases like 10 to 12 films a year because they don't want to get in each other's way. They want to increase the amount of profit that they can. Back then, it was like, make as many movies as you possibly can for as low as budget you possibly can. Kind of like what horror does now, but back then, that's just what every movie was done. You know, you wanted to save money. It was really just a business. And for movies like this, you know, these are the ones we remember. But there are so many noir films back then. I'm sure there's so many collections of just low-budget noir films that tell very similar stories with all the cliches. But again, all those cliches started here, and Humphrey Bogart is incredible in this film. Humphrey Bogart is one of the most famous actors for a reason, and he was born to play Sam Spade. I like him in here a little bit more than I like him in Casablanca. I just feel like the energy, the cockiness that he has in here is something that so many other private investigator characters were trying to imitate going forward. Now, you know, they wanted to show like a a private investigator at the top of his game who's going to solve all these crimes. And then on top of that, you get all these other great actors in here, like Peter Lorre. Like, he stands out. And I just watched The Celluloid Closet on the Sony Pictures 30th Anniversary 4K set, so I watched that a little bit ago, and that's how I found out this character is actually supposed to be portrayed as a gay man. You know, but unfortunately back then you had the Hays Code, so the Hays Code would get involved in everything, so everything had to be done through subtext. So they just kind of made it hinted at that he's gay, but he is supposed to be a gay man in this movie. And another thing that the Hays Code was trying to stop was the amount of drinking in this movie, but John Huston had to fight for that because he's like, Sam's drinking a half a bottle of liquor a day. If we bury that and not show that this man is a flawed man, because that's what the Hays Code was all about, was portraying everything as what they deemed to be the highest of humanity. You know, you couldn't end the movie on a sad ending. It was really a hard thing to get around back then until we got until about the late 1960s when they started to loosen up the reins on that. And I think they did a damn good job. Even in that subtext, you could tell what Peter Lorre was going for. He is one of the greatest actors of all time as well. And then really what I wanted to talk about on here is Sidney Greenstreet. He plays the fat man, which that's a really broad term, but he is a big man, and his acting in this movie as the main villain, just fantastic. He does an amazing job. He does an amazing job the next year in Casablanca too, but he didn't start making movies until this film. He was a British stage actor. When I was watching one of the documentaries on the second disc of this 4K we'll talk about, Mary Astor said that she had to hold his hand. He was so nervous that he was going to make an ass of himself because he's never acted in front of a camera before. And man, you know what? For someone who's never acted in front of a camera before, I felt like while watching this, he was the best actor in this movie. I think his character is perfect. And you know what? He's not one of those, you know, mustache twirling villains. He has a reason for doing what he's doing. And to see that in a film that is now over 80 years old, the character development, the writing, it's all just phenomenal. This movie, is it going to feel dated while you watch it? Absolutely. It's from 1941. You've probably seen this movie itself spoofed and satirized numerous times. If you're a kid of my age who's, you know, in their early 30s, you've probably seen this on Nicktoons or Cartoon Network spoofed and not even realized it. That's just how famous this movie is and what it did for the noir genre. And just for film in general, mystery films, you know, this is the one that really kind of made tight screenplays noticeable. Yeah, we had plenty of movies in the 1930s, but you know, this screenplay, that's really what the driving force is, that story, the twists and turns. You know, you're never bored watching this. I don't care if you are a person who can't get around black and white. I promise you, this will definitely have you wrapped up in the story if you've never seen it before. You might laugh at some of the lines. There's a line in here when Humphrey Bogart slaps Peter Lorre's character, and he's like, when you're slapped, you'll take it and you'll like it. And he slaps him 3 times, and it's just like ridiculous. But it's like, okay, it's the 1940s, I understand. But still, if you haven't seen the Maltese Falcon, even if you don't want to grab this 4K Blu-ray, I can highly recommend it. It's one of the all-time great films. It's one of the most famous films of all time. And if you're a cinephile, it's one of those films that, just like, you know, Seven Samurai, Lawrence of Arabia, where those classic films you have to check out at least once just to understand where all of the movie cliches and came from, and just seeing one of the most famous movies of all time, I think as a cinephile, it's very important, so I highly recommend the Maltese Falcon. But we're also here today to talk about Warner Brothers' brand new 4K Blu-ray that just came out. Well, here it is, the Maltese Falcon on 4K, and WB hasn't updated the Maltese Falcon in almost 13 years from what I was able to find. The last time they had a Blu-ray was in 2010. That Blu-ray is the pack-in Blu-ray in here, so it's a 2-disc set. You get a 4K, you get a Blu-ray. That Blu-ray is just that previous Blu-ray. If you have it, it's no different. The menu system, everything is exactly the same. All the extras are exactly the same. So what we get here is just a brand new 4K scan of the Maltese Falcon on that 4K disc. It's got HDR10, no Dolby Vision. It's presented in the aspect ratio of 1.37. So you're going to have the black bars to the left and right of the screen, not on the top and bottom. You know, it's an older film. That's usually how these work. And it's got a DTS HD Master Audio 2.0. You have no choice of your audio on here. It's going to start in this. You could just change your languages, but they're all DTS tracks in the mono system of 2.0, so don't worry about that. It's going to be a very front heavy. Don't expect a brand new audio track on here. It's no 5.1, it's a 2.0, but from what I understand, they just fixed up the version that was on the previous Blu-ray because I compared them and they were about the same, but the 4K was definitely noticeably clearer and better and overall, but it's not a huge jump from that Blu-ray as far as audio goes. Now, let's talk about the packaging before we get into the visuals. So you get this really nice slipcover there, and I also really like WB is doing that 100th anniversary logo at the top of their 4Ks for this year. I think that looks awesome. I love the gold trim with the blue. I think it looks fantastic. Great slipcover, nice artwork. You get the same artwork underneath with the regular 4K case. On the back, you get your stats. You open it up, And there are your discs, one black, one gray. Makes sense, very plain. I would have liked a little bit more artwork on those discs, but that's kind of in line with WB, and I think it works fine. And actually, after watching this disc, I have to say, like, you could just see the WB kind of, whatever studio, the way that they put out their 4Ks are very similar, because I was comparing this to Casablanca that just came out at the end of last year, and very structured, very similar. You know, you get the same packing disc from their previous release. You know, the 4K, comparing them, like very similar transfers as far as I can tell with the black and white. You know, it's not the best black and white I've ever seen. Like I said, it's HDR10. That was the same thing with Casablanca. It's not the best black and white 4K I've ever seen, but this one is from 1941. Now, the best black and white 4Ks I could see that I have seen were both from Kino Lorber that came out last year, and that was Touch of Evil and The Killing. And now both of those came out in the 1950s. Even though they're both shot in black and white, I think that the black and white, and I guess probably the cameras that they were using in the 1950s, were better, and the source material was a little bit better, because as good as this 4K is, and it's a huge jump from the Blu-ray, it really is, and again, 13 years to do that, but the HDR does so much work at making the 4K just brighter, the blacks deeper, the blacks look black, they don't look like a, you know, they look like a dark gray on the Blu-ray, and actually in previous versions of the Maltese Falcon I've seen, I'm sure many people, especially if you're a film historian, you've seen the Maltese Falcon in some really like bad looking VHSs or DVDs. It's just, that's just how it was at the time. It was the best we had. So I'm sure that you've seen that in previous versions. It wasn't the best looking. I can promise you that this 4K looks incredible, and you will not be disappointed with the 4K Blu-ray. Now, you're probably going to be a little bit disappointed, like I was saying, with the extras. The extras are all good, but none of them are new. There's nothing new on here. Every extra that's on here was on the previous Blu-ray, so if you have that previous Blu-ray and you were hoping to get some new extras, you're not going to get that. But that's not to say that the extras are bad on that Blu-ray, because they're not. There's plenty of them. There's a good documentary on there, which I always appreciate, so I think the extras are pretty damn good. They're just not new. The only thing you're really getting new here is this new 4K disc, and let me just tell you, that 4K disc definitely makes it worth the money. I don't know if I could recommend it at the full price. I can imagine that this is one of those ones that goes on sale and would be like $22 with the slipcover, and that's kind of the range I would recommend it at. I think it's definitely worth it at that $22, $21 range. Not for like $28. That steelbook's going for a little bit more than that. Yes, I think it is a beautiful steelbook. So it really is just going to come down to, how do you feel about the Maltese Falcon? Are you a huge fan of film noir and you want to check this one out because you want to see that beautiful black and white? I can highly recommend it. I'm very happy with my purchase of it. But if you're someone who's like, I can wait till the end of the year, you know what? Black Friday, pick this one up for 20 bucks, and I think that that is the perfect sweet spot for it, and you'll be very happy that you did. So overall, I am going to give this release of the Maltese Falcon on 4K from Warner Brothers a really solid 8 out of 10. I enjoyed my time with it. You know, I'm a little bit disappointed that, you know, there's no new extras, but that disc is so beautiful. I ate it up. I enjoyed my time with it. They did such a good job bringing that to, like, you know, it still feels old, but they did such a damn good job, especially compared to previous versions of the scan of this film. I mean, if you saw this back in the 90s, I'm telling you, you're going to be blown away by it. So, you know, just don't expect the greatest 4K ever. I don't think that's what this is. But it's really solid. It's the best version of the Maltese Falcon, which is one of the most famous films ever. So I can highly, highly, highly recommend this 4K Blu-ray. But we're also here today to spin our magic wheel and see who this week's 2 lucky winners of the digital code giveaway are. So they're going to do that right now. So if you happen to just be stumbling to the end of this video and you were just watching the Maltese Falcon 4K Blu-ray review and you're wondering what is the digital code giveaway, well, on Friday's video and this past Friday I asked you guys 2 digital code giveaway questions, and then you come back to Monday's video, we spin the magic wheel with your name on it, and then we pick 2 lucky winners who have their choice of the digital codes that you have seen on your screen before you today. And we were asking you guys, what is your favorite spoof movie and what is your favorite comedy movie of the 80s? And we got so many great answers on that one. Man, I don't think we doubled up on too many answers, which is always cool because I get a lot of great film recommendations from you guys and movies that I want to check out. And I really appreciate that. Matt really appreciates that. So thank you so much for always interacting with us in the digital code giveaway. But enough of me rambling, because we're here to spin this magic wheel, and that's what we're gonna do.
Yo, DJ, spin that shit!
All right, Teddy Graham. All right, Teddy, we're going to remove you. We're going to spin again. And Shane S. Congratulations, Shane. All right, congratulations, Teddy Graham and Shane S. Shane, I believe, was one of the original 5 names on the wheels, along with Brian and James. Those guys I remember from the very beginning when we spin that wheel and we just have 5 or 6 names on it. So Shane, congratulations. Thank you so much for supporting us from the very, very beginning of this channel. And Teddy Graham, you were up there pretty early too. You've always popped in. I think you've won once before. I think this is your second win, so congratulations. Since you guys have both won before, you guys know how this works. Hit us up on any of our social media. That's Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter. Direct message us. Let us know which of the digital codes you want. As long as the other winner doesn't take that code is all yours. And the Maltese Falcon is one of those codes, so if you're interested in it, we have one. So you can pick from that, but we only have one code, so it's only going to go to one of you guys if you want it. So let us know which of those codes you want. And of course, you can always reach us at our email address of letstalkentmt@gmail.com. And after you're done doing all that, everybody who didn't win this week, because we're going to do it all again, this Friday's video will either be Cool Hand Luke on 4K or Midnight Run on 4K. It depends which one I get my hands on first. Come back there, answer one of those 2 questions again, and then we'll see you back here next Monday where we'll spin this wheel 2 more times and pick 2 more winners. And again, guys, thank you so much for being a fan of Let's Talk. If you really want to help support this channel, nothing supports this channel more than by liking this video and subscribing to the channel. You could also grab the Maltese Falcon on 4K through our Amazon affiliate link, which is in the description below. It costs you guys no extra money, but it really does help the channel so we can keep bringing you these awesome 4K Blu-ray reviews. And also, we do podcasts now, guys, so we would really appreciate it, even if you aren't a fan of podcasts, if you just subscribe to us there, give us a 5-star rating, and then after you do all that, we just want you to go out and tell your friends about us. Enjoy your day, guys. Enjoy your week, and we'll be seeing you guys around.